There's a new show on television right now about the afterlife called The Good Place. It stars Kristen Bell and Ted Danson. Some of you may have seen it. All the characters in the show have died and gone on to the afterlife. The comedic hook of the show is that Kristen Bell's character has ended up in the good place by accident, and now she's having to learn how to be a good person in order to stay there. The show doesn't call the good place heaven, but it's where all the good people go that have lived exceptional lives. It's a cleaner and nicer version of a neighborhood. The people live in various types of houses and are paired up with their soulmates. It's a better form of our lives here on earth. In addition to there being a good place, the show also references a bad place. Now in the show, all we know about the bad place is you don't want to go there. The brothers in today's first reading and the Sadducees in the gospel would disagree about the main premise of the show, that there is an afterlife. The brothers believed in an afterlife. The Sadducees did not. Now I think it's an unwritten rule when you preach about the Sadducees, there's a joke you have to tell, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way so I can say I did it. There's an easy way to remember the difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. Unlike the Pharisees, the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. That's why they were sad, you see. Thank you. Now, I didn't say it was a good joke, I just said it was a joke. Now, the brothers in the first reading were willing to be whipped and scourged to keep the Mosaic law. They were willing to have their tongues and their hands cut off in front of their mother. All they had to do was break the Mosaic law and their lives would be spared. But they knew their afterlives hung in the balance. They believed in the resurrection. They knew that what we do and what we fail to do during our time here on earth matters. It affects our afterlife. Have you ever thought about what it would be like in the good place that we call heaven? I know I have. Before this past week, I would have told you it would be like my Cubbies winning the World Series. But sorry to all you Cardinals fans, I guess I'm going to have to pick something else now. But we all have different visions of what it's going to be like. You may envision it as a big family reunion with long-lost loved ones. You may envision mansions over the hilltop or streets paved with gold. You may envision heaven to be like those Frank and Ernest cartoons with people sitting around on clouds strumming harps. You may envision it like a neighborhood in the TV show. We as a collective people are infatuated with what heaven is going to be like. And I can't claim to know the exact details, but we do know that heaven is not a physical location. It's not a physical place where we go when we die. Unlike in the show, it's not a cleaner version of earth. Heaven is not mansions over the hilltop or streets paved with gold. It's not even people sitting around on clouds strumming harps. We try to apply human qualities to heaven so we can understand what it's going to be like. But the truth is that any way we describe heaven is going to fall short. Whatever we picture in our minds is inadequate. All of our images are wrong. But that's okay. Heaven is so much more than we deserve. Heaven is more than we can imagine. Heaven is a state of being surrounded by pure and perfect love for all eternity. Heaven is being in the eternal presence of God. And we're able to get a small glimpse into heaven when we come to Mass each week and celebrate the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist right here on this altar. And the good news is that God desires heaven for each and every one of us. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the flip side. Hell is not a physical place either, where we go with devils and pitchforks and fire and brimstone. Hell is also a state of being separated from the eternal presence of God. But getting back to the TV show, there's a very misleading aspect of the TV show that's crucial. It can give people a false understanding of God. You see, God doesn't make mistakes. He's perfect, after all. God knows everything about us. He knows things about us that we don't even know about ourselves. He knows our thoughts and our desires. He knows our inner dispositions. He knows the worst things about us, yet He loves us anyway. He loves us even when we find it difficult to love ourselves. And after you die, if you're meant to go to the good place, you will go to heaven. And if you're meant to go to the bad place, you will go to hell. Jesus tells us in the gospel that He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. God created us with immortal souls that will live forever. There will be a resurrection of our bodies when Jesus comes again, and there will be judgment. Some of us will be counted as sheep, and some of us will be counted as goats. Some of us will be headed to the good place, and unfortunately, some of us will be headed to the bad place. So how do we ensure that we end up in the good place and avoid the bad place? Ultimately, we must rely on the mercy of God. We are imperfect beings that do not deserve to be in the eternal presence of God. However, God doesn't send anyone to hell. We send ourselves when we choose ourselves over God. We're called to remember where we are journeying. Chances are we will not be faced with scourging and whips to renounce our faith. But we are faced with our own challenges on a daily basis. When our coworkers are gossiping about someone, are we going to join in or are we going to stand up for them? When someone at school is being bullied, are we going to stand by and let it happen or are we going to tell someone about it? When someone is in need, are we going to turn a deaf ear or lend a helping hand? Brothers and sisters, we are gambling with our afterlives. And the cold hard fact is, there is a heaven and there is a hell. Our lives here on earth have eternal consequences. Are we willing to risk our eternity by not standing up for our beliefs? By not forgiving others? By not showing mercy? By not loving others? I sure hope not.